So now switching to what we are trying to do. So this is our sort of slogan, 0 to cloud in minutes. This is what we try to preach. And before I get into what we do, let's just discuss the state of the market as we saw it when we acquired Cloud Platform. We saw, if I went to an enterprise, any large enterprise, and look at their IT guys were doing virtualization. VMware is everywhere, everywhere. I mean, I don't know a single enterprise that doesn't run VMware. They might have a Zen server running on the side, but they definitely have VMware running, right? 100%, as far as I can tell, footprint. But into the same enterprise, you go ask a developer what they're using, they're going to tell you they're using AWS. They're not using VMware. They're not deploying stuff on VMware. We realized was a cloud initiative that VMware rolled out. Adoption has not been very good. I'm not saying it's not a good product or great product. We're not getting into what's good versus not. But whatever the reason has been, the adoption has been poor. Not just for vRealize. That is the same for OpenStack, CloudStack. HCI is making inroads now. Hyperconverged infrastructure is making inroads into private clouds today. But we still see challenges in that world. But in general, the enterprise IT world is stuck in virtualization. Developers in an enterprise are all on public clouds today. And the opportunity of converting virtualization into private cloud, if you may, is stuck on neutral. Maybe, if there is a gear between, I don't know, they're just on the wrong gear. There is no acceleration. They're just stuck in a very bad place where it's not been able to go. And we believe there are reasons why that switch never happened. Not because it doesn't make economical sense. We think it makes great economical sense. But it still hasn't happened because of a variety of reasons. We think it has been because, one, pick your cloud. CloudStack, people say it's more stable and easier to deploy. It still takes a couple of weeks to deploy. That's way too much. It's way too much. So it has been hard to deploy, hard to scale up. You needed hardcore cloud engineers to do this. It was not an easy challenge to solve. Subpar user experience. I can go to Amazon, a child can go create a VM and get it up and running. The second step, third step might be more complex, but getting a VM up and running, getting a storage allocated, attach it to my VM, very, very trivial to do. The user experience of the seamless integration of what I normally do with this has been very, very good in public cloud, has been nowhere close in private clouds. The other big problem is it's not elastic. If private cloud, by definition, you're limited by the hardware you have, right? When you're out of hardware, you got to provision. We have a customer, they wanted to turn up Microsoft as an account. When they turned up Microsoft an account, they had to launch 400 new VMs. For 400 new VMs, according to their formula, they needed 45 new servers. 45 new servers, procuring, racking, stacking, having everything up and running before they can turn up Microsoft as an account takes forever, right? So private clouds, by definition, are limited by the hardware you have in there, and that is a challenge. We wanted elasticity in your private cloud. The moment you want a second site for disaster recovery, cost is double, just double. A single site, more economical. Double the cost, add network, add your replication tools, add the whole thing for DR. Now, boom, your costs are way more expensive. And in general, needed rocket scientists to operate. Irrespective of which tool you pick, you needed really, really smart guys to operate. Most of the operating cost of clouds, more than the colo, the network, and the hardware, goes into expertise you need. Whatever, 451 did a research and said at 400 VMs per administrator, you break even. 400, that's like a tiny number. You got to be able to run, thousands of VMs per administrator, in our opinion. That is the right number. But the industry is nowhere close to being that. So those are the challenges we saw, right? And hence, what did we create? We created Rovius. Rovius is a software appliance, which is the brains of a cloud. You take Rovius, you go into your data center, you run it, point it to bare metal servers and storage, and tell go. It'll take that bare metal servers and storage and give you a cloud in minutes. That's what we do. In minutes, you will get a cloud. You don't need to figure out how to operate it. We run a cloud-managed service. In our cloud, we run an operations manager, you can go register your cloud, and you can now manage your cloud. Now, our control plane sits inside your enterprise. It does not sit in the cloud, but the management plane can sit. You can optionally run it inside, but you could manage it directly from our cloud if you wanted to. You could trigger upgrades from the cloud. It's completely up to you. We don't upgrade your cloud unless you want to. Again, manageability of your cloud, and we'll go through demos of this. Debugging, finding out performance of your cloud, filing bugs, all of this we've made very, very trivial. We've made running a cloud, we've taken the rocket science out of that. We've made it very, very simple to do. The third thing we have done is this elasticity problem. We seamlessly burst into a public cloud, seamlessly. Same APIs, you can use the same orchestration APIs. A public cloud will just show up as a zone in your private cloud. So while you're deploying, you can deploy it in your own data center zone, or you can deploy it in an AWS zone. Today we support AWS, but Azure and Google and everything else is in our roadmap. But you could now seamlessly deploy your workloads. You don't have to change your provisioning scripts. You don't have to worry about networking. We seamlessly network, private to public cloud. So all of those things, the rocket science is taken care of. And all you got to do is, your public cloud shows up as a zone. You provision here, you provision there. It's your same DevOps script, same tools. It is seamless. And finally, Amazon is just phenomenal as a company. Serverless. They just innovated a faster tick than anyone can believe. But we are trying to catch up on the services side. Today, we support containers, Kubernetes as a service on Rovius. You can just go and say, I need Kubernetes. We'll provision it, give it to you right away. You can go in and say, I need analytics as a service. We'll provision Hadoop. We'll give you an analytics engine, our analytics engine, and turn it up for you right away. It's not quite Elastic MapReduce, but we got tooling which is far better than Elastic MapReduce. The usability of Hadoop in our world is far better. So slowly we are inching towards not just infrastructure as a service within an enterprise, but having more and more richer services within the enterprise cloud. So that's our vision. Our vision is, can I make cloud easy? Can I make cloud easy to install as well as operate? Can I make the seeming problem of data center size go away by giving you, Amazon as another option? And we don't quite have this yet, but disaster recovery we're working on. You can now point to instead of building a whole second site, you can point to public cloud as a second site. All you're paying for is data. We will migrate your data from here, store it in S3. So you're paying pennies on the dollar for your disaster recovery site. And when you want your workload up and running, you can go there and click on a button. We will recover your workload in the public cloud. You pay only for the time you had a disaster rather than building a second site. So we're taking the challenges out of DR, in where the second DR site cost you an arm and a leg. We're working on technology to allow you to use Amazon as your DR site. At a very high level, this is where we are. So, Raj will take you through where the product is, and do a demo. I'm way over time, but happy to take a few questions and we'll get into it.
Talking about the innovation and Amazon, I'm sure you've covered this, but what would you say to people who say to you, how on earth could you even possibly try to catch up with Amazon? And they've got so many services coming out so often. Why would you even bother trying to keep pace? Or is it only about providing an Amazon-like experience for on-prem private clouds?
Again, if I tell you that a 520 people company can out-innovate Amazon, I'm on crack, or whoever's listening. It's not possible. They're a behemoth. They're technologically phenomenal guys, and they're innovating at a beautiful speed, right? We don't want to be Amazon. We give them credit for what they're doing. But we think 80% of your workload can be repatriated in, run at a more cost-effective rate once you have stable workloads. Go innovate on Amazon. Go create services.
So is that the crux of what you're going to see the future being, that currently people are struggling with private clouds. They've messed it up by attempting to do it with vRealize or with OpenStack. They move things onto the public cloud. They create that agility and that time to market for their products, but it's going to now cost them a bit more, so you can provide them that Amazon-like experience, and they can choose whether to continue to run it on Amazon or Azure or Google when you get there, and critically on-prem, which may be cheaper.
We have so many customers right now who are going exactly that path. When they want to start small, when they want a DevOps cloud, Amazon is hands down the cheapest option available. Hands down. We internally use Amazon for most of our development. But at scale, it becomes more expensive. So we tell a lot of our customers, go innovate there. Be very careful not to use the Amazon APIs. If you're tied to Amazon APIs, it's really hard to repatriate, right? So as long as you're able to repatriate or create a layer which you're able to separate yourself out of that. And we have customers who thought of that right at the beginning before they became our customers, who were smart enough right at the beginning to say that, look, we want the agility to move from one cloud to the other. So they orchestrated their applications without tying to Amazon services very tightly. There are guys repatriating where we see It's very closely tied. We bring our persistent brethren in, and they go in and lift and shift to bring them back in. But it is possible to bring it back in. But if you architect it right at the beginning to be sort of cloud independent, you will be able to bring stuff back. But absolutely, yes, DevOps and Amazon, great place to start. But at scale, I think private clouds make more sense.
So you're saying, sorry, go for it.
I mean, so, the obvious rumors around Amazon's or AWS stack, what does that mean for your proposition? Should the fact that AWS and VMware seemingly are getting jiggy and there is talk of a private AWS stack happening, what would that mean for you?
We don't know. At this point in time, that's the God honest answer. Azure Stack came along and hasn't
come
changed the
along
market.
yet.
Yeah, I mean, so we believe there is a market opportunity now. AWS Stack is a rumor right now. We don't know if it's in there or not, but everyone is talking about it. The VMware relationship hasn't moved the needle too much from what we are doing right now. At least we don't see it. So we're here now. A year from now, I don't know, maybe the story changes. I'm no oracle, no soothsayer, so we'll see how the market evolves. But I think right now we're in a good place.
What about enterprises who are saying, but hang on, the reason I'm going, excuse me, the reason I'm going to Amazon is because they've got these great APIs. The reason I'm going to Azure is because they've got those great APIs, and I want to use those exciting, amazing new cloudy features that I can set up a DynamoDB database directly rather than managing a VM that I install SQL on. Obviously, that locks them into a certain thing, but it takes quite, it would take an enterprise quite a bit of foresight to think I'm going to start a cloud now that's going to be completely cloud agnostic.
You're 100% right. I don't have an answer. We are seeing momentum without worrying about those issues. I don't know why. Great question. At the end of the day, I'm going to Amazon not just because it's cheap to get storage and compute, but because they got Kinesis. You know what? You can use Kafka. You don't have to use Kinesis. It's probably just as good. In your DevOps environment, just orchestrate Kafka as a little toy. We will give you Kafka as a service in our cloud. That's our story. If you were tied to wanting to use the Kinesis API, you'll have to re-architect your application when you bring it back in. So it is what it is. There's, again, all of these, there are guys who have taken the public API world. People are offering Kafka in their public clouds, but Amazon has taken the Kinesis route. It's a private API. Now, again, I don't have an answer for you. We're seeing momentum right now. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to comply to Amazon API a year from now, and maybe that's a project we start. But right now, we're okay.
I think, another way to look at it, some of the services that are good in Amazon can still be used from on-premise. So if you just want to use S3 as a storage, you can still use those APIs. For using some of the advanced analytics and stuff, you need to solve the data problem, and people are kind of willing to do that, saying this kind of data I need it for analytics, so I'll move that or duplicate that on the Amazon because I want to take advantage of that service. But that does not mean that you have to completely live in Amazon. You can do a much more cost-effective stuff if you have some of them.
A lot of APIs are application layer. Once you're an Oracle, you're an Oracle. You provisioned Oracle using some Amazon API, but Oracle is still Oracle. Hadoop is still Hadoop. EMR is still EMR. But how do you, it's the key challenge is there are some APIs which are different, like Kinesis versus Kafka. Provisioning APIs are different, Beanstalk versus what you would do in Cloud Stack. There is going to be some lift and shift, but I think the cost savings when they decide to bring it back in, it still makes sense to perhaps do that migration if they have tied themselves to an API there.
Let me add a little bit to that question about the enterprises and private cloud, demand for the private cloud, and also Ben's your question about Amazon private cloud coming in or a private stack coming out. So here's what is happening. The demand is there. The enterprises are actually building the private clouds, and the proof is that Azure Stack, private stack, was launched recently. They have been working on it for a while. They sort of accelerated that and launched last week, right? So they see the demand. Their customers are asking for an on-prem solution. So they built an Azure Stack. Now Amazon may do it as well, but the challenge would be for enterprises to have an agnostic on-prem infrastructure, which is again not tied into one of the public clouds. Azure Stack, you can and run workload, only Amazon Azure workload, back and forth on-prem and Azure. You cannot run that workload on Amazon.
But the value prop we heard from Nara is more around the economics, and therefore the lock-in thing is less relevant as long as they can get the secondary, as long as they can get the economic benefit of Azure Stack or AWS Stack.
Economics, I mean, we have built a bunch of calculators, actually. We work with SaaS companies, and I was going to talk about this little later in the presentation. But there are calculators, actually. You go and run your math and figure out if there is a predictable workload, I don't need that scalability that I need on-demand, up and down scaling. I would rather put it on an on-prem fixed infrastructure and save a boatload of money. We have done this exercise several times.
Yeah, but my point is that if you just said that enterprises need the independence that an independent private cloud can give them from AWS. And yet, to Nara's point, the real driver for private cloud is because the economics are better
Yes.
private. So there's a bit of tension between those two value propositions, and I agree that the value prop is more about economics. The lock-in thing is, people don't mind about lock-in if they're getting a better level of service or whatever.
Right.
And so again, there's that question, and we don't know. But if Azure Stack is only going to be GA in September, AWS Stack is still a rumor. So it would be interesting to kind of
Figure that out.
postulate or pontificate on what might happen.